The next item on the agenda is a public comment from Linda Vaughan, 126 Wheeler Street. Linda, if you will take this mic right here where everybody can.
I'm already dropping the stuff.
That's all right. Take your time.
All right. Greeting, gentlemen, ladies, fellow citizens. I come here tonight because I wanted to discuss 126 Wheeler Street. And most of you may remember that in March of 2007, I presented before council with a request that it not be rezoned to business, and that it was a residential neighborhood, and that the business area that was rezoned business was smack dab in the middle of our neighborhood. So after the planning board did not recommend that to be rezoned, 12 days later before the city council, it was rezoned to business. And it was my understanding at that time that it might be a parking lot. So why I'm here today is what's happened in 2 years. Since this came about in 2007, back in the early part of the spring, the grass got to the point that it was knee-high. There was a tree that had fallen in the yard, and then the aluminum siding started coming off, and I thought, well, why is the aluminum siding coming off? And then I found out that that can be used to be recycled. So they were stripping the aluminum siding. So what I did was I brought these pictures just to show you this is what it looked like the first of the spring. And then with the help of Public Works, they cut the grass, and that's what it looks like now. So what I have now is siding that says Georgia Pacific with blue backboard, and that there's still aluminum siding on the porch. There's a blue chair on the porch. And what I discovered was that the local developer that asked for this house in the middle of my neighborhood to be rezoned eventually turned it over to a developer in Georgia. And that's a post office spot, so I can't call him. And so my question is, how frequently do we contact the developer or the contractor in Georgia for him to maintain his business property in the middle of my residential neighborhood? It's a health hazard when the grass gets tall. There are children that play at Chalk Yacht Park, and that they play around that house that is not indicated as a business. And I have to ask, and maybe Mr. Chichester could let me know if the property has insurance. Since the local developer sold it to someone in Georgia, how do we know that that property has insurance for business purposes? So what happens when the 5-year-olds riding their bicycles go over there, or the little skateboarders get up on the porch? Who takes that responsibility? It's a visible eyesore to your softball visiting teams, the military that park behind Hardee's and Taco Bell that need to stretch their feet, and they come down that block and they see that house with Georgia Pacific backing on it. It's also my understanding at one point that stolen goods was being stored in the shed behind that property, and that I think, and this was hearsay, that building was tore down because of the stolen property in the back. For days, the windows stayed up and the side door stayed open, inviting uninvited guests. And finally they came over, and now I have plyboard covering the windows and the door. So I guess what I wanted to stress to the council tonight is that, and we had a difference of opinion, because I remember Attorney Rollins said, when you see spot zoning, you know it's spot zoning, and that this house remains as business property in the middle of my neighborhood, and that in the future, I beg council to keep in mind that if you do rezone to business, that you look at, well, how long is it going to take for them to tear down the house? Because one of the neighbors said that they have taken the wiring down away from the house so that there's no electricity or any wiring to the house. And so you have an uninhabitable house that's not marked business, that has no trespassing signs, that they can't even cut their grass when they're multi-million-dollar owners. And if you think that upsets me, it should upset you too. So with that, I thank council, and that was my question is, property insurance or business insurance, maintaining that property, and how much money does the city of Roanoke Rapids has to pay to keep telling that developer, this is your business property now, take care of it. Let's see if I missed anything, because I thought about this long and hard. I think not. And honestly, I'm not mad with you all. It's just that I wanted to make sure that in the future this doesn't happen again to one of your residences. The other thing I had was this, and I didn't know. This was a learning curve for me, was that when I went to the planning board on March the 15th of 2007, the planning board did not recommend to city council to approve that. I thought that was the end of it. I didn't know that it would come before city council, that you would hear it again, and then you would make your decision. Well, that decision came 12 days later. So what I wanted to ask was, if the planning board has a decision that they decide is not to recommend something, should council give it 30 or 45 days consideration, and that it be publicly put in the paper that it was not recommended by the planning board, and that city council would review this issue in 30 to 45 days before making a definitive answer? Because the 12 days really didn't give me enough time to prepare, nor any of my neighbors. And it was just by a default that I found out that it was going to be heard. So I thank you for your time. I appreciate the city council and the members wanting to beautify the city and improve the surroundings. I want to make it a safe place for our community, our children, and our visitors, and I just thank you so much. And one more thing, Mr. Furby did not want to approve that rezoning, so I applaud him for that.
Thank you, Linda. Is Brian here? Huh? Do you have any comments concerning this residential place, Brian?
Nothing other than when we got the complaints, we went over and looked at it, and the complaints were taken care of, whether the tall grass, or we went over security when she called us and told us they weren't secure, and I sent 2 officers over there security. And they are in the process of getting the demolition permit and all. We have to go through state asbestos program. That has to be done before we can issue any permits. And the asbestos survey has just been done, so we should be taking care of that before too long.
Okay. Would you please make a note that any action that is taken on this property to notify Linda at her mailing address, or so she'll know what the outcome is on this project as far as the demolition permit, how far along that's going to take, and when it might be coming before this council again. Okay, Linda?
And just, for the other surrounding families, and I don't know if you could do this because we don't own the property, but that someone lets visitors know that this is a business property and that the children need to stay off the property. Parents are not always outside with the children, and they're around that facility that literally the aluminum siding is torn off.
Well,
in the yard and stuff.
I'm sure the manager will instruct the property department to make sure that the owner of that property has no trespassing signs put on that property.
Maybe that would help.
Yeah, but the main thing is to keeping her, and she's come to the council with these concerns, is to make her aware of what process we're in and where we're at with it.